It was the USS Detroit. The Detroit was the very first ship that got out of Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941. She was tied up at Buoy 14. She'd been in that area for a while running messages and on a few submarine hunts. But so she wasn't in any of the docks. She was tied up at a buoy. And on the morning of the 7th, according to the stories, one of the torpedoes that the Japanese dropped went behind the Detroit and ran into another ship. I went in 44, came out in 46. I was an aviation machinist mate. That's a mechanic for an airplane. Well, I was in San Diego for boot camp, and then after 2 months there, I went to Alameda Naval Air Station for gunnery training, and then in December of 44, we shipped out. We left the States, went over to Pearl for a stopover. I think we stopped to get a admiral that was from Montana. His name was Don Berry. He was from Helena. Always said we stopped over to get him. They told me they really stopped for supplies. And from there, then we went into an island called Ulithi. And Ulithi was our home port overseas. They had taken that island, a group of islands, and they had built quite a war chest there, knowing that we had to have ammunition and food and hospitals and all that kind of stuff if we were going to go on into Tokyo. So they built up this island. They had 750 million gallons of gas, 750 million gallons of oil, and everything else like that. I call it now the Costco of the war. They had uniforms. They repaired a ship that was hit by a kamikaze. We didn't think it'd be even repairable, and they repaired it out there on the island. So that after being at Ulithi till the 1st of February, then we were called down to Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima war started the 19th of February. We were 650 miles away from it when we left on the 5th. And we get down there. It was a terrible place. We lost 29,000 Marines in that battle. For an island that was 8 miles long and 3 miles wide. But we had to have a base where our bombers coming back from Tokyo would have a place to, if they were in trouble, had a place to land, or we could repair them or whatever. That was the idea behind it. And of course that war went on till mid-March. We left there the 19th of March, and we're headed back for Ulithi with a ship called Ben Franklin. That ship was a aircraft carrier, and she was a part of our flotilla, and that was the Third Fleet, Halsey's Third Fleet. We that night at 5:30 in the afternoon, a Japanese bomber. He wasn't a kamikaze. It was just a bomber that had no business being there. Saw the fleet, went over the Ben Franklin, dropped its bombs. They went through the ship and into the ammunition and fuel departments. At 8:30 that night, there wasn't much left but a skeleton of the ship. I didn't think they'd ever get it back in the action, but they did. They sent it over to Guam. I towed it into Guam, and then I took it to New York and built her back up. Just so happened the Ben Franklin was launching planes at the time this bomber came down, and the flight executive had just taken off. So he chased the Japanese down and shot him down. And we went on into Ulithi again then. Stayed there until April 2nd, and then we were called down to Okinawa. We stayed at Okinawa for about 15 or 20 days, and got that one pretty well secured, and went back up to Ulithi again. This time overnight, about 8:30 at night, we were having movies on board the ship. Several ships were in the island, or around the island at that time. They used the island for R&R. They had a baseball field set up on part of the island. Guys go and play baseball, basketball, drink, get a couple of beers, whatever. And 8:30 that night, there were some Japanese kamikazes that came in from an island, who knows where. The official claim was that there were 20 of them that left wherever the island was that they had been on, but that the Navy had secured that island quite a while back, and it left junk airplanes over there, and these guys had fixed them up, and by golly, they flew them in to Ulithi. I happened to be in what I call the Av Shack, back on the fantail side of our ship. And I swear that I could see that Japanese face as he banked and went across our ship and went into the another aircraft carrier that was at an anchor just off the island. Those were probably our two closest calls that we had while we were out in the Pacific. From there, we got a call to spend 93 days at sea without seeing a shore or a landing spot. And we didn't know it, but we were preparing for the atomic bomb. Of course, in August 7th and 14th, Tony and Nola Gay went in and dropped their bombs. But we were about 100 miles off of Japan when they dropped the bombs. We were in it was called Area 6, and didn't feel anything, didn't see anything. We were on our way back around the canal there someplace, and we got a call that we were to go into Tokyo Harbor. This was the 26th, 7th of August. The Japanese were going to surrender. So we went into Tokyo. We were the first ship into Tokyo, first warship. We docked at a dock right almost downtown Tokyo. You walked around Tokyo from War. And on the 2nd of September, we were anchored next to the USS Missouri for the signing of the surrender. At that time, I wrote my folks, I was writing a letter while the thing was going on, telling them what was happening. After we left Tokyo, we went to Honolulu. It was the 25th of October, 45. And they had Navy Day that day in Honolulu. We were the only ships that seemed to be in port, Pearl Harbor. And so we got liberty for that day, and the ship hauled up. And we packed that up and headed for the States. We got in here early November, 5th of November. And the skipper said that the ship was going to go down through the Panama Canal and end up in Philadelphia Naval Yard. Well, I was from Los Angeles at that time. I went into service from Los Angeles. So I asked him if I could get off a ship with a buddy I thought I might get married. And he, sure, you get off, you meet us in Philadelphia on the 5th of December. Oh, that's great. 30 days. He lived in Bremen, Indiana, and I was in Los Angeles. The deal was I was going to show him Los Angeles, and then we go to Bremen, but we ran out of money after the 3 days. I got back to meet him in Bremen, and then he had a 38 Ford sedan that he'd purchased, and he said, we're going to drive back to Philly in that sedan. We did. Got to Philadelphia on December the 5th, the day we were supposed to check in, and the skipper told us we had already been transferred down to Norfolk, Virginia, and that he'd give us 5 days to get to Norfolk. So we took off in that old Ford, got to Norfolk about the 13th of December, just as our aviation unit was being dismantled. And Jack and I both talked to the skipper and said, where are we going to be sent? He says, we don't know. We're trying to find a place close to home for you. So he said, but I'll give you another 30-day leave and you can go back home. So we did that. I got home Christmas Day, 1945. Then that leave, I was sent down to the Marine Corps Air Corps Station at El Centro, California. There, of course, it's right in the middle of the desert. You could only fly from 4 o'clock in the morning till about 8. From then on, you could fry eggs on the wings. So we had nothing to do most of the time there. I did get assigned for a few days of shore patrol in Mexicali. Mexico was closed to the sailors after midnight. And anyone not getting back to their ship, it was a court-martial offense, of course. My job was to get the guys back out of town, out of Mexicali before the time ran out. We had a paddy wagon there. We'd drive it around, pick them up, and send them across the border. Then I got out then in July. First part of July of 1945. And that was my tour.
When you went down to Pearl Harbor, the first time when you were on the way to the Detroit, had they started a lot of repairs and stuff? How fast did they get Pearl Harbor back up and running after it got hit?
I would say probably 2 weeks.
Really? That's incredible.
Yeah. See, it happened that all of our carriers were out of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Ships they hit like Nevada, California, were in dry dock. Mm-hmm. They're sitting pigeons, you know.
Yeah.
And we had such big losses there.
Yeah.
I tell you, I was there 2 years ago. I still go back because all the buddies I had that were from Pearl Harbor battle. I said, let's still go back and throw a wreath in the water. Mm-hmm. It's December 7th. Last time I went back, there were about 100 servicemen there from various ships. Most all of them, most everyone there had served at Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
Talking to some of those guys,
yeah.
There were most of them on the Detroit. They had all the guns and all the ammunition locked up. Mm-hmm. They had to break the locks off of cabinets to get guns and ammunition.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I say our ship shot down 2 of the Japanese planes.
Mm.
And
was there a lot of Japanese submarine activity at that point in time, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that would have been my biggest fear, probably.
They the days before Pearl Harbor, there were Japanese submarines in Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And one of them, I don't remember the ship that radioed in. There was he'd seen a submarine and they didn't believe him.
There was a ship called the Warrant or something, right? That sunk one?
Yeah.
That morning?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And now, of course, they've gone back and found the submarine that he sank.
Yeah.
I told him he was crazy that morning.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Do you by chance remember, were you able to hear the address that FDR gave on the radio?
I did. I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I had been at a model airplane meet at what they called Mines Field. Well, Mines Field is now called LAX.
Oh.
But we had a model airplane meet there, and I was participating in that. Ran into a buddy of mine from Illinois who wanted to take his girlfriend for a ride up on the mountain behind San Bernardino, and invited me to go with him. And we did, I did. And as we were coming down to seemed like about 12:30, something like that in the afternoon, early in the afternoon, on his radio, we heard about the war. And we were told to pick up any service personnel that might be on the streets or on the highways hitchhiking and get them back to their base as fast as we could.
I've seen a couple of videos online, some old videos of when they put the flag up on Mount Suribachi and the ships were honking their horns and stuff. Did you get to see, were you able to see the flag up there?
No, we weren't able to see the flag. We were too far offshore.
Oh.
We were, our main job was, we were called ComSur on 6. and I was a commander of Service Squadron 6. Our job was to go out and pick up ships from New Zealand or California, wherever they were coming from, with food or supplies, and take them to where the fighting ships were.
Oh, kind of be some protection for them?
Right.
Yeah.
And we had to make sure that we stayed as far away from the firing as we could.
Yeah.
But, so we didn't I'd like to have gotten in the shore. I had several friends that were in the Marine Corps. Thank God none of them were killed at Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
But there were 17 of us in the same grade in high school. We had a car club, and every one of them was in the service. Every one of them. Mostly, I think, Air Force, because the Air Force was picking them real quick. There wasn't any delay on them.
And back then, it was the Army Air Corps, wasn't it?
It was the Army Air Corps, right? Yeah. And that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I had wanted to fly like all my life.
Yeah.
And thank God I was able to in the Navy, because the ship we had two OS-2 Kingfisher float planes on the deck.
Yeah.
And so I got to fly in the rear seat of that on several flights, mostly scout observation.
Yeah. And you said when you docked in Tokyo, were you able to get off the ship?
I got off second day that we were there. I had shore patrol duty, and whenever I was checking things out, I run across a little boat, had 3 Japanese in it, 3 Japanese men with loincloths on, and they were trying to start the motor on this ship, on this boat. It was one of those that they called a picket boat. They were to go 10 miles out from sea and spend days out there. But these guys they weren't mechanically inclined. I don't know where they had picked this boat up from, whether they'd stolen it or what. But anyway, I called 3 or 4 guys off of our ship, which was not very far away from where they were. And one of my mechanics, George Fideli was his name. He was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And George was a first-class mechanic. And he came down, he found that the mags on the engine were messed up. He straightened them out. And we used that boat to run around the Tokyo rivers, or whatever you call them, the canal, all the time we were there. When we left in October, we sold it to a bunch of Marines for $75. I still have the flag that I took off that ship.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about all of your service, do you think? If there was any kind of fond memories or anything like that?
I think probably that crew that I served with in the Detroit, many of them were still on board from Pearl Harbor. I would say we had 450 men on board. I would say there were probably 40, 45 of them that were on board, some from 1934, and they stayed aboard all the time. They wanted to stay on the Detroit. And then making friends with them from all the states.
Yeah.
Really, it was. I wouldn't take $1 million for that.
Yeah. Has the USS Detroit had any like kind of reunions of any time over the years?
Yep, we had reunions starting in, oh God, when was it? Must have been about 1950 was our first one. That was in Fresno, California. And we had one every 2 years from that year on until the 9th, 09, I hosted the last Detroit reunion here in Montana, and there were only 45 guys left. Today, there's only 2 of us. All of the 450 that we kept rotating and everything, there's only 2 of us.
Did you know him at the time?
He was my crew.
Oh, really?
He was an aviation machinist mate. His name was Leo Gilmartin. He's from California. And Leo became an aeronautical engineer after he got out of the Navy. And he did not retire from his job till he was 70 years old.
Oh, wow.
He worked for one of the aircraft companies in San Diego area.
That's awesome. What did you do when you came home?
I thought I wanted to be a policeman. So I went down and I went through all the tests and exams and all this kind of stuff. And on my way home from one of those final tests, I stopped at a J.C. Penney store to just say hello to a manager that let me work for him when I was 15 years old. And I was at a retail store, of course, in California. And he wanted to know what I was doing, and I told him. He said, "Well, you're coming to work for me right now." He says, "This is May the 20th, 1947. He said, Father's Day coming up in June. I'm short-handed, and you're going to go to work for me." So for $295 a month, I went to work for him. Never left.
Really?
Spent 40 years with the J.C. Penney.
That's awesome. Wow. That's a long time.
Oh, God. Funny how things work out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It was a job that had to be done.